All right, let's take a look at the main story that we're looking at this evening. This, as you can see on your screen, is the March 2018 issue of Mathrubhumi magazine Grihalakshmi. It had a picture of a woman breastfeeding a baby on the cover. The caption alongside it in Malayalam said, "Don't stare, we need to breastfeed." So obviously, there were people in the country who sat up and said, "What? How dare you? How dare you use breasts on the cover of a magazine for anything other than titillation?" Some people who could have had more to do if they were gainfully employed actually went to court against that cover, calling it vulgar and obscene. But today, the Kerala High Court said, and I quote, that one man's vulgarity is another man's lyric. The court went on to say that beauty lies in the eyes of the beholder, and so does obscenity, perhaps. I wish I could add that the petitioner could have something better to do with their time and their money. But following that judgment, I put out a simple poll on Twitter today asking, should breastfeeding in public be encouraged? Thousands of votes and counting, but the nature of some of the responses left me wondering. Mr. Banerjee, for example, responded saying, in that case, urination should be allowed in public as well. That's not the same thing. Urinating in public, Mr. Banerjee, is simply unhygienic. Feeding a baby in public is necessary. Mr. Patel says a sari is meant for only that purpose. What happens if the mother in question is not wearing a sari? Or do you insist that all new mothers wear saris alone? Mr. Sandeep Pal, who left a comment saying, please lead by example. Mr. Sandeep Pal, cheap shot. And I'm not even going to dignify that with a response. Satyam says there should be private rooms built because breastfeeding in public places make people uncomfortable. And my response to that, about people being uncomfortable when mothers breastfeed in public, is this poster of this film. That is now going to pop up on your screen. This poster of this film doesn't make you uncomfortable. Here, the mammary glands of that young woman are being used to excite those three young men. And you're comfortable for this poster to be plastered all across our country in city buses and in train stations and in malls in front of your children. That's okay. But God forbid if a woman were to use her mammary glands to feed her hungry baby, which I might remind you is exactly what those glands were for to begin with, your sense of decency and propriety and morality are being violated because this hungry baby is refusing to accept your high standards of morality. It insists on being fed immediately. To those who say a woman should feed her baby in private or cover up the child, I say this. As a country, we encourage women to breastfeed exclusively for the first 6 months, which means don't give your baby anything other than breast milk. A baby needs to be fed every 2 or 3 hours in the first 6 months, which means that either a new mother should never ever leave her house. But if she does leave her house, what happens when the baby is hungry in a bus or a train or even the doctor's waiting room? What is a mother to do? Sometimes the only private space available is the corner of the ladies' washroom. But ask yourself this, would you eat your lunch in the corner of a public toilet? Or would you eat your lunch with your head covered in a hot, humid country like India just so you don't offend anyone? Should we, as responsible members of society, make women comfortable to breastfeed whenever and wherever the child needs to be fed? Or instead, should we make it an issue of morality and obscenity? Is it an issue of morality at all? It's an issue of hunger and of necessity. That's the question we are asking today. Should we step aside from morality and simply look at breastfeeding as someone having lunch? Should we encourage more women to think of this as a natural, free process of someone having lunch? That's the question we're asking today. Our phone lines are open. Twitter is open as well. So is involve.in. Anurag Naidu, activist with Think Right, joins me right now. Rahul Ishwar is also an activist. Geetha Bhatt is an academician. B. Ramesh Kumar is the senior news editor at Mathrubhumi. We're very happy to have Mr. Ramesh Kumar with us. Shaili Chopra, founder of She the People TV, she's a senior journalist, and she also has a 1-year-old son herself, so she's going to be a strong voice on this panel. Dr. Sameer Hassan Dalwai is with the Indian Academy of Pediatrics. Sandhya Raju is a child and women's rights activist. I welcome all of you to this conversation. Thank you for making the time. I'm going to start with Shaili Chopra. Shaili Chopra, what do you make of this? Should morality be completely removed from this process? Because the kind of responses I've received when it comes to women breastfeeding in public are quite frankly shocking and laughable.
Indeed they are, because I think we make too much of the whole issue of breastfeeding in the public space. I think over-sexualization of this issue is absolutely uncalled for. When you talked about whether we should look at the idea of breastfeeding or nursing a child simply as having their food, I just simply don't understand how they can forget that nursing is the very idea of nourishment for a child. And to me, whether one looks at the way we've looked at workspaces, whether we look at public spaces in general, private spaces, for years, both men and women have over-sexualized breasts as objects that have to be talked about purely from a sexuality point of view, or expected to remain as an object of titillization, and far from the actual relevance of it, to look at the very basic notion that women were born with breasts, with that idea to pass on nourishment and not really end up being objects of desire, so to speak, as both men and women have made it. And why do I include women in this conversation? Precisely because if you look at any woman who grows up and for the first time she discovers that she has got her breasts, and as she grows up to watch what's happening in media in general, or looks at films, or whatever you do, you'll notice often enough you'll find people will tell, especially women will tell other women, please cover up. I've seen this happen around at workspaces where, one person will go up and say, listen, why are you breastfeeding? It's uncomfortable for the rest of them. I think as the court kind of has said it probably in the best possible way, that if beauty lies in the eyes of the beholder, so does obscenity. And so it's time for people to get far more comfortable with the idea of breastfeeding, because I don't see why should women cover themselves head to toe just in order to hide something that's a natural process in the first place. So I don't think morality should even be debated about this. I think we need to question ourselves as to why for so long we found this uncomfortable as an idea, when it's perfectly normal that we all insist, that in India especially, and I don't even all the time agree with the fact that you must or mustn't have breastfed your baby, but it's such a big deal in India to breastfeed, right? I mean, it's so important. The whole world talks about the positives of it and so on.
Absolutely, Shari.
Allow me just look at it as nursing is nourishing.
Yeah, let me actually bring in Rahul Ishwar at this point. Rahul Ishwar, where do you stand on the question of breastfeeding in public? Do you think we should encourage women to be more comfortable with the idea?
There are two things, ma'am. One, Madhrubhumi and Grihalakshmi is one of the great media houses in Kerala with a great legacy we all respect. But I respectfully disagree with Grihalakshmi for publishing that cover. Because, had somebody else did, won't we say it is commodification of women? Won't we say it is objectification of women? See, encouraging breastfeeding in public and publishing a photo of it are two different things. So, there is a great respect to the legacy of Madhrubhumi. At the same point of time, we and many people in the right conservative sectors disagree with it, because it is commodification, it is glamorization, it is objectification of female body, and that I concede that many people has such cheap language from our spectrum.
One second, Rahul Ishwar, let me show you another couple of examples. Let's put that film poster on the screen again, please. 1 second, let me show the film poster. Do you think the film posters are okay, Rahul Ishwar? The ones that, are in fact objectifying women? No. So we should stop that as well. Can we show the stamp in question? This stamp that's on your screen?
At the same point of time.
1 second, Rahul Ishwar, let me finish asking the question. The stamp was actually issued in 1984 in our country. It's shockingly a similar image of a woman breastfeeding the child. And the idea behind this stamp was to encourage more women to breastfeed. The child is not covered, the woman is not embarrassed. Is this objectifying, Rahul Ishwar?
two things, ma'am. One, can we comparing film posters to a very well-respected magazine which is meant for education and other information stuff also is comparing apples to pineapples. We cannot have such a comparison. Second thing, see, there is a cultural sabhyata and sanskar aspect to it. I'm not afraid to tell I believe in that kind of a sanskar and sabhyata, and there are many left liberals who will claim us we are sanskari people and they will ridicule us. There is no disrespect, but there is disagreement to them. So the whole idea of this campaign
but you're not addressing my
printing
stamp.
a photo of a mother who is breastfeeding, glamorizing it.
You're not addressing my stamp. Address my stamp. No, it's 1984. It's a beautiful stamp. Do you think that it is glamorizing breastfeeding?
The stamp is beautiful, but will the pictorial representation of a real model and a real photograph with glaring details be of that acceptability to public is something we have to ask. A caricature, a stamp,
no,
a
okay, so hang on.
a diagram
One
is
second.
important.
Rahul
Just
Ishwar,
one line.
Rahul Ishwar, is your problem here with the act of breastfeeding or with the breast itself? Is your problem with the breast? You find it offensive? You want it to be put away?
The problem is with picturization and commodification. The
of
problem
what?
is with the
With the babies.
picturization and commodification. Just one line. In 8th standard biology text, we have pictorial representation of male body and female body. Can we have a male photo and female photo like that? So we need to have some nuance in the debate. We cannot give such a photo in an 8th standard and 9th standard because we know it might be titillating, it might cause controversies, it might hurt cultural sensitivities. So that cultural sensitivity angle should be respected. Kerala High Court verdict we all respect, but we respectfully disagree with the whole
Hang
idea.
on, let me read out the Kerala High Court verdict, and anyone who wants to jump in can feel free, but this is what the Kerala High Court verdict says. Kama Sutra, composed by Vatsayana a millennia ago, is the first scientific treatise on the world of eroticism. It goes on to say that in the book, obscenity lies in the crotch of beholder, which is quoted by the Kerala High Court. It goes on to list out various books, various judgments about how this is not obscene. We are the country, and it says Ajanta. We built Ajanta Ellora. We wrote the Kama Sutra. And what are we saying? That a woman breastfeeding is not part of our culture? That this is, I mean, that Indian women don't do this? That we don't take photographs? That we don't have breasts? That we don't have hungry children? I still don't understand what part of culture comes in to a hungry baby. Hungry babies should be fed.
Yes. What are we talking about?
Yes, Shelley, go ahead.
And what sanskars are we talking about? I mean, we make this whole conversation about being sanskari and traditional. I mean, I can't even believe that the gentleman who's just describing the cover says glaring details. What's so glaring about it? I mean, women have breasts, they feed through their breasts, and it's an absolutely normal thing. And I note that you're trying to make the point that it's a model, or so to speak. I think there can be nothing more powerful than a magazine cover trying to normalize the idea of breastfeeding, just like the stamp did, just like we've seen the rest of the world do. In fact, while breastfeeding is a legal right of any woman in this country, I'd like to bring to your notice there are countries in the world like Brazil which fine people like the activists here who may raise objections to the idea of breastfeeding in public. So I think it's high time that we start normalizing this conversation so that people get to know what's legal and what's not, and more importantly, start getting very familiar with the fact that it's perfectly okay. If you ask me today, women should be doing this in boardrooms, and if somebody's uncomfortable, let him get up and leave the room.
Absolutely. And on your screen, the visual of an Australian senator breastfeeding inside of Parliament. Mr. Ramesh Kumar, I'm sure you have answers for Rahul Ishwar. Please go ahead, Mr. Ramesh Kumar.
Yeah, okay. Okay. We at Madhurabhumi and also the people at Grihalakshmi, we are all happy to have to hear this brilliant and beautiful, at the same time poetic judgment from the Kerala High Court.
Yes.
I think people who criticize or who have been speaking against our stand definitely should go through the lines of the judgment. It's a beautiful judgment. In that judgment contains everything. Even beyond the judgment, in spite of the judgment there, you can always, sometimes we may be able to argue, make arguments in the name of culture, India, things like that. But what you should understand is that Indian realities are much above all these things. You should think about the people living in the villages of North India or the Eastern India or even some parts of Southern India. They should have the freedom, and they should have the space, place to feed their infants. That's a very big thing. And it may be very easy to say philosophy or say Vedanta. Instead of that should not be done. What exactly is a factor? We made a very bold decision. That was not a commercial or as a decision made out of compulsions of commercial things or something like that. Prior to the International Women's Day, naturally the editorial board of the Grihalakshmi, they had a meeting almost 1 month before that, and there were women in that, young girls were there. So naturally they discussed what should be the issue, what should be the theme for the next International Women's Day. And after discussing many things, finally they had some of the members of the staff, they suggested that this is a major issue. Some of our sisters or even some of our relatives experience the same problem.
Yes.
So why can't it be made an issue? And through that, and they made it clear that through that, instead of doing some minor story, we should give a very strong social message. And they discussed, the editorial board discussed, and they made it. And it has been welcomed by many people.
Yes. Yes.
UNICEF India welcomed it. Many international media organizations welcomed. Even very ordinary people. I received letters. All of our news editors received letters. Our editor received letters complimenting our stand. And we are very happy that finally Kerala High Court also approved our stand. One more thing I have to say is that you just think about the ordinary poor women in India.
Yes.
Even before jumping into decisions and taking stands on that, the infants should get the best nutrition, that is a mother's milk. Why should they be ashamed to have this kind of a sacred act? Why should I go to the child instead of to the woman? Your eye must be to the child, not towards the woman whose picture is given, or say a woman is standing at the bus stand or a mall. Why should the male's eye must be there? You just look into the child's face. That's what the Indian philosophy and Indian ethos and Indian Vedanta has taught us.
Yes.
So anybody who opposes these kind of things, I think they are actually speaking against the Indian values. That's my stand.
In fact, the Indian government right now, about a year ago, started a campaign to encourage women to breastfeed. Now, it's called the Ma campaign. We've started a breastfeeding campaign in India in 1984, which was a campaign that said children should be given breast milk.
Yeah, that's true.
But a year ago, the Indian government said, no, we're going to encourage
that
women.
Was a very big campaign.
Yes, to breastfeed. That's the Ma campaign that you see on your screen right now. I want to bring in Geeta Bhatt. Geeta Bhatt, do you agree that given the push
that's very true. That is, my point is that
yes.
My point is that if you restrict the woman or the women, say, what exactly happens? The infant is being deprived of nutritional milk.
Yes.
That's what happens.
Yes. Geeta Bhatt, where do you stand on breastfeeding
that?
in public? Geeta Bhatt, please go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah, Faye, first of all, as far as breastfeeding is concerned, I think as others have said that it is a very natural phenomena, and it is something which is something very tender, very sublime, and it is something which is very personal between a mother and a child. So as far as breastfeeding is concerned, it has been proved time and time again, scientifically also, that mother's milk is very important for a child, and a mother should at least feed the child for first 1 year. So as far as breastfeeding and promoting it and talking about it, making people aware about it is there. Of course, the NGOs as well as the government should go and go full ahead and sensitize people about it. But and the second point that was being discussed so far was that why people are thinking that we should not discuss about this issue. I think for years together, centuries together, there has never been a taboo on discussion. Even if you look in our scriptures, in the Yajurveda says that a woman's breast is like a pitcher full of nectar. Kashyap Samhita, another scripture, is basically, it is nothing else but a pediatrician's manual which talks about lactation, which talks about breastfeeding, how important, and the various techniques.
Right.
Now, the point here, or where the question arises is, with respect to the, to the photo cover of this magazine, Griha Lakshmi magazine. Now, as far as I understand, this is a magazine which has over a very wide circulation in Kerala or in south of India.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Now, this is a magazine which basically has got a large circulation in middle class families there.
Yes.
And it talks about women issues.
Yes.
And this cover page came out basically celebrating, as I think one of the editors is talking about, 8th of March, which is the International Women's Day. And I remember at that time, one of the editors had said that it is basically breaking away from the convention. We want to break away from the convention. Very true, very welcome. We welcome that.
Exactly, that's
but
what I said.
But the fact is that the whole essence of the message, of breastfeeding, importance of breastfeeding was lost.
How?
By portraying a picture where a woman who is actually, please let me finish. It was lost. Why? Because the picture itself portrays the most conventional picture. You look at the woman who has been portrayed there. She has got a Mangal Sutra, she's got a bindi, she's got vermilion. Everything is there. It is one of the most conventional. And look at the color skin which has been used there. I mean, there is a model which has been used there. All of
I don't
us
understand.
have grown up seeing people who are not so fortunate like us, who have, just give me 20 seconds.
I don't understand your objection. I don't understand your objection. I want you to get to the point.
Let
Yes.
me finish.
What's the
Let me
objection?
just finish. My point is that there are not people, the less fortunate people whom we keep seeing around, who rear and bear children all around on footpaths. Why a photograph if the intention was to promote? If the intention was to promote the message, why not use a real mother and a child relationship? The girl used was a 22-year-old model.
How is that? How does that
Why-
matter? I tell you. Can I answer, Geeta? But I know the answer.
How
Please,
that
please.
is the why if the so it is
No, let me answer this question, and I'm sure Mr. Ramesh Kumar will also have an answer. But let me take a stab at this. Okay, so Geeta, one second. I heard your question. Stop shouting. I heard your question. Stop shouting.
That whether it was for commercialization or
Okay, I
whether
have
it was
answer.
actually for the message.
Okay,
that
first
the
of all, one second,
magazine has
Geeta,
been
but
trying
okay,
to
stop
say that they
shouting so
wanted to
somebody can
promote.
answer your question. Well, first of all, now let me just go over your various objections.
Yeah,
You
sure.
said, one second, you said it's very traditional, she has sindoor, she has Mangal Sutra, she has bindi. That was not an objection. Then you said the color of her skin, you didn't stab that down as an objection either. Then you said there are less fortunate people. Now, I don't know if you wanted the magazine to go out onto the street and take a picture of a woman without her permission. That would be a violation of privacy. The magazine has to use the picture of a woman with
but
her
why
permission.
They could have done that. They could have, if the
So let
intention
them-
was to address the issue.
How is
if
this?
the
How does this
intention
not
was
address
actually
the
to
issue?
address the
I don't understand
That
it.
is what is my
You're
doesn't
just stabbing
change
in the dark
anything.
at this point.
I mean, that
Ramesh
is
Kumar,
doesn't
answer the
change
question.
anything. How I take it.
Ramesh Kumar,
It
answer the
doesn't
question.
change a thing.
It doesn't change a thing.
It doesn't
Nobody
matter
knows
whether
whether
it's a
this is a magazine, whether it's a model or not. Nobody
doesn't
cares
matter.
whether it's a model or not. But Ramesh Kumar will answer. It's his magazine. Mr. Ramesh Kumar, go ahead.
Exactly.
Okay. Oh yes, I will give you an answer. Actually, she's an air hostess, lady air hostess with a airline company. She's actually a trained person. She gives breastfeeding hints to the mothers while the flight is on. Especially if you are feeding it at the takeoff and also as a landing. And also when the things will be a problem. So she's a trained air hostess, and she gives tips and also she trains people on this. She volunteered. She was ready to give this message. That itself is not a small thing, and that kind of hair. She said this. She said that she would be the model. And I do not know why it is being criticized. It's a positive gesture, and that is being that she volunteered, and actually we made it the cover. And I think the court has taken into account all these aspects, the commercialization aspects. That was a plea, and also the original, the OP, the petition. The petitioner said that it was against some of the acts. All those things were there. Court actually got into all these things, and court made it very clear that all these allegations and apprehensions are baseless. So even after that, I think it should be fair. If we should be fair to the society, and also if we should be fair to the convictions, we should all respect that judgment, a beautiful judgment. So we should even after that go beyond all these things, saying that commercialization, things like that. And actually, as a news editor who has received letters not only through the mail and also through the real or regular postal system, a lot of people are appreciated for that bold stand. So if you have to make changes, one thing you should be very sure, especially in India, if you have to make changes with conviction and commitment, you should have you should be able to give strong messages, and
Right.
you should be
Absolutely.
you have to take some strong stands.
Right.
It should
I have a couple of
especially in
panelists who,
especially in
yes, I have a couple of
societal
panelists who haven't spoken yet. I
Don't-
want to
don't
just
you
bring
agree with
everybody
that,
in one by one. Dr. Sameer Dalwai is a pediatrician. Dr. Dalwai, is breastfeeding about having lunch, or is breastfeeding about morality and history and culture and Indian, sanskar?
I'll come to all of them, but I'll start with morality. Yes, it is about morality because it is good morals to feed your child, and there's no two things about it. And I'd like to say very proudly that I represent the Indian Academy of Pediatrics, which in the 80s and 90s spearheaded the moment that breastfeeding is the best feeding. There was a big drive against formula feeds, and IAP succeeded, Indian Academy of Pediatrics, succeeded in bringing about the importance of breastfeeding. I'd like to go a step further and say that the debate should actually have been about the misconceptions about breastfeeding. For example, let me use this platform to say that the first 2 days of milk, that is colostrum, still there is a myth that it's not the good milk. But we need to enforce the fact that yes, the first 2 days of milk, the colostrum is especially the good milk because it contains good immunoglobulins which protect the child. The other message is preterm babies, low birth weight babies, a lot of misconceptions. Each and every baby after birth needs to be breastfed, and we need to push this message all over. It's very unfortunate that we are having these kind of debates about it. Coming to the picture that you're showing on your screen right now, what impresses me the most about this picture is the expression on that lady's face. Look at her staring at you and look at the confidence on her face. I like that. That's the kind of mother that we want in India. That's the kind of women we want to encourage and not to pull down these people. Now, whether she's a model or whether she's a nursing mother really or no is besides the point, because a magazine or a cover is illustrative, and by illustrative we mean you're trying to make a point. The point is not only about breastfeeding. The point is being confident enough to breastfeed your baby, which is not just the baby's right, but your own right as a mother, as a parent, anywhere. What is this issue about public place in a country like India? Where is personal space? It's all a public space. You go out everywhere, there's people all over. And I carry a message from our president, Dr. Santosh Sons, that if possible, definitely encourage special rooms or a place where mothers can breastfeed, but it's not possible practically. So there is absolutely no debate that the Indian Academy of Pediatrics supports breastfeeding everywhere in every form. Now, those who have a
Sameer
problem,
Dalwai,
problem
Dr.
with
Dalwai, I have a follow-up question
I
for you
imagine
to
that's
help our
because-
audience understand, please. For those people who've written to me on Twitter saying a woman should look for a private place. Now, if a baby is hungry and the baby is crying, what happens if the mother then goes looking for a private place, looking for a place that I can hide and feed and cover the baby and cover
Absolutely.
myself? What happens to the baby?
Let me tell you the Indian Academy of Pediatrics guidelines. Breastfeeding is on demand. You cannot decide when to feed the baby. The baby demands and decides when to feed. And when the baby demands feed and cries for a feed, that is the time to feed the baby. You don't need to go looking around for a room. If there is a convenient place, of course, you might use it. But that's not the point. The point is, you have a right to feed the baby wherever you want and wherever more importantly, when the baby wants. And that is something absolutely we have to completely support. So coming to this objectification thing, I dare say it's because there's still a so-called right-wing tendency to look at the woman as an object herself. So somebody who said that this is an objectification is basically coming from that point of thought that the woman herself is an object. And I might even dare say that all kinds of right-wing, sanskari, whichever religion, whatever culture we may talk of, the entire agenda is to subdue women. The entire agenda is the chauvinist agenda, and I'm very happy and I'm not surprised that this picture comes from a progressive state like Kerala, which we know promotes women's health and women's rights so much that it has got the best matrices of child health in India
to
from
Dr.
Kerala.
Dalwai.
And I'm very proud and I completely support our friends
Yes.
from Kerala.
Well, lots of objections also came from the same state.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
I just want to make a small point, Faye, if you permit.
Please go ahead. Shelley, go ahead.
It's primarily driven by the point what this message came to about find that private space. I just want you to know, I mean, I think a lot of women will resonate with this. When you have little children in India, it's pretty hard to even find a bathroom where you can find a diaper changing table in an emergency. Forget about having an area that's meant to be private to go out there and feed your child. So I think the infrastructure in this country doesn't even think women. I mean, you were at a debate today where you were talking about being in a city that's safer, smarter for women.
Yes.
I mean, we just have no space of any kind, and I think it's really time that before this debate gets wider and wider about sanskars, let's just reclaim that space and let it be public space, and let's just breastfeed openly, because we can't really wait for rooms to get built, bathrooms to have diaper tables, and so on and so forth. I mean, the entire aircraft has one corner out of 4 bathrooms where they'll put a diaper table. So, you know, we're really not geared up to be women or child friendly in this country anyway.
Right. Anurag Naidu, activist will think right. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I heard the entire panel very patiently, and I believe there's a bit of distortion, there's a bit of going away from the topic. The topic today circumnavigates around the key statement and the observation made by the Honorable High Court of Kerala that obscenity lies in the eyes of the beholder. I would have been more happy had the court taken cognizance of the intention of the magazine to put a model.
Are you questioning the court?
How the breastfeeding is done. It is according to me objectification of women. Number one, had the court just taken cognizance and put it on
No,
record.
so
Second, you talked about the stamp.
Yes.
You talked about an ancient stand, and you talked about encouraging the breastfeeding. We are not talking about encouragement of breastfeeding. According to me, if a child needs to have breastfeeding, no better person than mother knows it, and she can go to any extent to make her child or fulfill the needs of her children. Okay, so we are talking about a change in mindset. We are talking about how we should be thinking. Right, and it is right in the right direction. And some gentlemen also talked about some North India and villages and rural places where we don't have facilities, and you know that's where women encounter some problems. But yes, I'm pitching for that.
No,
right?
but are you objecting for the sake of objecting, Anurag? I don't understand your objection.
Prime Minister Modi talks about building toilets. We should also be talking about building enclosures where women can use it for breastfeeding.
No, I'm sorry, Anurag Naidu. Don't build enclosures for women. Breasts belong to women, breasts belong to babies. It does not belong to men who either want to use it to sell beer or either want to use it to sell their films. Breasts belong to women, and they will do with those breasts as they please. We don't need opinions from people to tell us what we want to do.
Nobody's denying
we will
that.
feed in public if we want to.
It does. Nobody's denying that. The fact is there is a hypocrisy.
It sounds a lot like the hypocrisy is coming from you right now, quite frankly.
Yeah, we can see that.
There is a sense of hypocrisy in the magazine's approach. The magazine
Explain
titles
to me
that
how.
don't stare at us, we are breastfeeding. At the same time, they put objectifying a model.
How is it objectifying? Someone explain to me, how is it objectifying when we live in a country where, quite frankly, people are giving certificates to films like Grand Masti, Kya Cool Hai Hum, and other such films to release in the public space, and we're okay with all of that. How is this objectifying? Someone explain to me how the woman on the cover of this magazine is being objectified. Rahul Ishwar has his hands up. Yeah, Rahul Ishwar, go ahead.
Can I just point out one thing? I totally agree with Ramesh sir, being a very senior person from the industry, that breastfeeding needs to be encouraged. We are not against breastfeeding. Please remember, we are against photographing of that breastfeeding and putting it on a cover page.
How will you encourage
There's a huge
it otherwise?
difference. And I would point out with all due respect that many people here have heights of liberal hypocrisy. They are picturizing as if the right wing is against breastfeeding, against babies and mothers. No. On the other side, we are all for family, we are all for breastfeeding, we are all for motherly values and family values. We are against the commodification, we are against picturization of breastfeeding.
So the stamp is okay.
And put it in top of a magazine and say that, don't stare at me.
Okay,
And
one
please
second.
remember,
Rahul Ishwar,
earlier a
yes or
person
no
said the
questions.
mother is-
One second.
The
Just
mother
give me,
should be
yeah.
looking at the
It
baby.
just
Okay,
not
one
the
second,
man.
Rahul Ishwar. 1984 stamp, are you okay with it?
The problem here is that
One second, sir.
even-
Rahul Ishwar, 1984 stamp on the screen right now. Are you okay with it? Is this comfortable for you? It's not objectifying.
Please give me.
Yes
please
or no,
give me
Rahul
1
Ishwar?
minute.
Yes, I'll come to Mr.
Well,
Ramesh
Ramesh
Kumar.
sir wants to talk, so just one
No,
minute.
no, no.
There's a difference between a stamp and a cover page.
What is the difference? What is the
Just 1 minute
difference?
for me.
Yes, Mr. Ramesh Kumar, I'll come to you as soon as
Okay,
I...
Stamp has wider
That is
circulation,
the
you know.
problem here.
No, one second. Let me ask Rahul Ishwar to clarify his
Just 1
stand,
minute.
Mr. Ramesh Kumar, and then I'll
Okay.
come to you. Rahul Ishwar, I'm going to go one by one. First of all, on the
Okay,
screen,
okay.
the 1984 stamp. What is the difference between this stamp and the photograph on the magazine, Rahul Ishwar? Why does the magazine offend you and this one does not?
The first thing, I cannot see the stamp. I cannot see the stamp because right now I'm facing camera and we don't have the privilege of having the screen. But having said that, even if there is a stamp like that, there's a difference between commodification and objectification on a cover. And please remember the whole dispute. It has generated a very healthy debate between the conservative and the liberal section. And I proudly belongs to the conservative section. People who belong to the liberal worldview, we respect them. We disagree with them.
It's amazing
But the
how
whole point
conservative
here is
people
we
are only
not against
conservative about
breastfeeding,
somebody
but
else's
portraying
bodies.
it using a model, giving it a commodification, and just one line. What is the message? Don't stare at people who are
How
breastfeeding.
it's
And what are they doing?
illustrative.
Putting
It
up the
doesn't
cover and say,
matter
look
whether
at
it's
me.
the model.
This
Think
is the
about
whole
the
point.
message.
Shelly, go ahead, please.
Think about the message. It's the,
The
message,
message
it's
is
not the
don't
model.
look.
It's
The
the
me- what is the
message.
message,
And
ma'am?
I
Just
think there
one
can be
line.
nothing
Just one
bigger
line.
than
What is
putting
the
it
message?
on a magazine
Just one
cover
line.
where more and more people see it. Well, I don't. Why are you focusing on
And
the
say,
model?
look at me.
Didn't the editor just spell
And
out?
say,
It
look
could be
at me.
anybody. In fact, I'll go a step ahead and say
No,
it
no,
doesn't
no,
matter
I'm
whether
just
she's
pointing out
an
one
air
thing. What
hostess
is the
who trains
message?
people
When a
about
mother
how
is
to
breastfeeding,
deal
it
with
is a
situations in a flight.
Rahul Ishwar, you're not listening to the answer. In fact, Mr.
To me, the message
Just
is
one
pretty
line.
clear that be comfortable
Just
with
one
public
line. What is the-
breastfeeding.
what is the
I
message?
don't see why you overanalyzing
Ishwar,
whether this lady
I
is a
can-
model or she's not. At the end of the day, you're perfectly comfortable watching all actresses who may not be actual mothers, being mothers on television. What's the difference whether she's a model? You just focus on the message. And by the way, I just want to make a small point. You all are talking about glamorizing. If you ask me, by all means glamorize breastfeeding. Why not? Because I'm not saying objectify, I'm using the word glamorize. It's absolutely cool. It's absolutely fine to breastfeed. Go out there and breastfeed. What's the big deal? If we should be happy in the last 3
So you mean
years
to say that
Bollywood
commodification
has
and
finally
objectification
started
is all
letting
right?
pregnant women be by themselves. No, objectification is very different from glamorizing it. Putting breastfeeding on a cover is very different from trying to say whether the model should be a mother or not. And I think you're getting into nitty-gritties which don't matter. This nation needs to know, as do men like yourself, that women should be allowed to breastfeed publicly.
Faye, can I come in,
or
please?
as
All
they
right,
please.
all right.
Divine
whatever
or
they're
devil lie in the
comfortable with.
details.
No, I promised
Divine
Mr.
or
Ramesh
devil,
Kumar
lie in the
I would
details.
allow him an answer to this
Doesn't.
question. One
You're
second.
making
I want
devils
to make
out
a
of
small
no
point.
detail.
Mr. Ramesh Kumar,
Hello.
what was the message? And I believe, Mr.
Give me-
Ramesh Kumar, let me say it,
shall I speak?
that
Okay.
you have achieved
The-
everything you set out to achieve when Mathrubhumi put out this magazine cover. You have caused people to have a conversation, you've caused people to talk about it, you've caused people to think about it, and the High Court giving us this beautiful explanation. I think you've achieved checkboxed all your, goals when you started off. But answer Rahul Ishwar's question of what was the message? What was the learning?
From this.
Yes. What was the
Because,
message you
we
wanted to give
actually
your
try
people?
to give a very strong social message.
Yes.
That is, you should not say, you should, a mother or a female should not get ashamed to feed an infant. That was the message. Because if that kind of a situation comes in, the problem is that you are actually rejecting the rights of that infant. Look the other way around. The infant is trying to have the milk, and she or he is crying. That infant is crying, and just because of the fact that you don't have a place to sit and give the milk, that right is being denied. That was our focus.
It's a
And that
beautiful,
was
and you
well
achieved,
taken.
and you achieved
And also
that.
one thing I would
Yes.
like to say is that
Yes.
we achieved that, and we are happy to, we are very, very happy that we could do justice to those cries of the millions of infants in India or say outside the country. And especially often what happens is that even another gentleman was speaking regarding the special enclosure, things like that. Even in all these kinds of suggestions, I fear that some way or another way this male chauvinistic say perspective comes out. That is quite unfortunate.
Yes.
Another thing is that
Yes, yes,
whatever
1
may
second.
be
I
the
want to
good-
bring in
the
Sandhya
media,
Raju, who
even
joins us as
whatever
well.
may be
Sandhya's
your
on
media
Skype.
organization or
Sandhya,
say the
yes.
newspaper or our newspaper or some other major newspaper, they sometimes whatever may be the good, even if you do a good thing, often it is being mistaken as commodification or whatever, something like that. Is it right? You should think, the nation should think.
Yeah.
We have, whatever you do, why should you go the other way around? There should be good things in it. Your organization say has given this very fine discussion to this nation, and we also do.
Yes.
Why should you
Yes,
think
the
always in
the idea
negative
is
way?
to raise questions. Just
Right,
one
bring in
second.
the
Sandhya
positive.
Raju,
That's
child and
that's
women's
my-
rights activist.
That's my request as a journalist.
Yes, yes. Sandhya Raju, a lot of people have objected, but at the end of the day, it's a job, like Mr. Kumar said, of a journalist and of a magazine to put forward questions in a sharp and bold way to make people sit back and think. You won't make an impact if it's timid and if it's not bold. Sandhya Raju.
Yeah, I agree with you. See, basically, it's a very patriarchal attitude when you say that women should not be seen breastfeeding a baby and a picture of that kind of offense moralities, because the child is not going to see where the mother might be sitting in the bus and the child might just want to feed at that point of time, and the mother cannot go rush to look for a private space. So basically, we have to stop seeing women's bodies as something sexual, something as a sexual. Sexually titillating kind of thing, and we have to just let women's bodies be women's bodies and the child's right to feed from the mother, and there is no other way. I mean, it's like, why do you want to look at a woman's body in that manner? That is really sad.
Exactly.
And I really appreciate the High Court. I mean, the High Court has given a very fitting judgment, and I appreciate Mathrubhumi for bringing out this cover, because it encourages and it normalizes this process, which is to be seen as a normal thing rather than something which is unique. It is a normal thing.
Absolutely. It's a completely normal thing. I'm going to give Geeta Bhatt the last word here. Geeta has been waiting for a while. Geeta Bhatt, go ahead.
Yeah, Faye, I just wanted to, first of all, I think if you look at what all the panelists have said, no one is contesting the point that breastfeeding is very important. It needs to be talked about, it needs to be discussed. There is no contest in that. But there are just 2-3 points that I want to make. First point that I want to make is regarding that the breastfeeding needs to be glamorized. Let it be a woman's personal choice. Someone would like to glamorize it, someone may not like to glamorize it. So let it be a woman's personal choice whether she would like to glamorize whatever
In this case, the woman
personal
agreed.
she has between her and her child. So I think that must in this case, it's a model. It is not a woman and it is not her
She
child.
definitely is a woman.
The child was suckling to the nipple of a woman who is not the mother, and there is no milk in it. It is just for objectification. Secondly, I just want to say, someone was talking about the right wing, that the right wing wants to subjugate women. Let me tell you that the magazine would not have dared portray it besides anyone except the faith in which they have portrayed the woman. Because they also know that it is in this world that Charlie Hebdo also happens. Right? That is what I want to say.
How is religion anything?
Right?
Oh my God.
Thing is that please.
They just,
no,
this is just
you
not
did
so
not
connected
contest
at all.
it when the doctor on this panel talked about it. Faye,
He said
it is
any
very
religion.
unfortunate when the doctor raised
No, are
this
you,
issue,
one
you
second,
did not
one second, let me tell you
contest
something,
it.
Geeta,
You
but
did not contest it.
conservatives
But
are
when-
conservative in
when
every
Mr. Rahul
religion,
Ishwar
and the
raised
doctor
issue,
didn't mention
when
any
I am
religion. He
raising
said
it.
any
No, it is
religion
not
of
about
conservatives.
that.
But go on.
It is not about that. The whole idea is that this is the faith which is the most liberal, in which you can just portray anything and no one questions it. No one is.
I think this conversation
I am
is
not
evidence
contesting what
on the
High Court
contrary.
has given. The High Court decision is right in a way. The High Court decision is right in a way.
I
What
don't
am
know, yeah. I don't
contesting
think
is
breasts have a
the
religion.
intentions of
I think
the
it's very
magazine with
difficult to
which
look
it
at a
has
pair of
been
breasts and guess
there
the
are some
religion.
Lakshmana
Really.
Rekhas people should respect. I don't think we should take it. I know we can definitely. There is a strong disagreement where to draw the Lakshmana Rekha. No, that's the genuine debate in this nation where liberals and conservatives will always fight it out. The whole point is there should be a Lakshmana Rekha. People like me who belongs to a conservative spectrum will say we need to have a bit more tighter Lakshmana Rekha. The other people say we need to have a broader one. But I think we should stick it only to that. That Lakshmana Rekha should be drawn where to draw
already
it.
sexualize breasts. Let's not politicize them.
I think
You know, all right, I have to.
Can I just comment?
Okay, Samir Dalwai, quickly
just comment?
respond because that last response was
Possibly
actually.
Can I just comment?
Yeah, Samir Dalwai, quickly,
well,
quickly.
Well, I completely understand what my friends in the right say, that it's a conservative thing. So that itself explains that we need to move on with the times and we need to progress. So that's enough. I just like to say, let's go ahead from here to talk about the diet of the mother, to talk about the food that the mother is getting, and let's talk more about the nutrition that the baby gets through the breast milk, rather than talking or debating about these issues and objecting to it, because it might create a wrong impression about breastfeeding. So let's not have this discussion. Let's talk about the mother's health. Let's talk about the baby's health.
All right, I'm going to wind this up right now, and I just want to point out a couple of things when I wind this up to my panel. I don't think breasts have a religion. It's very difficult to look at a pair of breasts and guess what religion they follow. Breasts have only one religion, really. When there's a baby, did you know that when a baby cries and that sound falls upon a mother's ears, the breasts automatically begin to lactate, they generate milk. That's the only religion they know. So to bring in religion, to bring in right-wing, left-wing, conservative, otherwise, I think is completely, horrendously hypocritical. Also, every pair of breasts belong to a woman. That woman also has a brain and a heart and the ability to choose what she wants to do with her breasts. By all means, if you are conservative and like Rahul Ishwar said, you want to draw a tighter Lakshman Rekha, draw it around yourself. You have no right to draw a Lakshman Rekha around anybody else. The woman in this picture gave her consent for this picture. She posed for it. They are her breasts. Let her do whatever she wants with them. It is not up to you to decide what she ought to do with her breasts. Just like it's not up to you to decide that if a woman is breastfeeding in public, she's right or she's wrong. She's doing whatever she wants with her own body. For heaven's sake, leave the women alone. Let them do whatever they want. There will be women who are uncomfortable feeding in public. They will try and look and find a place. And there are others who are not uncomfortable. Your discomfort makes absolutely no difference whatsoever to that decision. The decision is based on the comfort of two people, the mother and the child. You are irrelevant. Nobody asked you. Nobody cares what you think. Take your opinion and your Lakshman Rekha, draw it around yourself as tight as you want to, because you're the only one who you are allowed to regulate. Let me end also by reading what the Kerala High Court said today, and it is, and has been said, lyrical and poetic. It says, and I quote now, "We cannot as a nation, people of all shades of faith and belief, afford to chain ourselves to the past, glorious as it may have been." The glory, in fact, was a change and almost abomination of those living then. Only from the prism of the present that the past glories appear to be glorious. Who knows what we detest now as our ancestors did then, as a decadence may be its very glory viewed in a distant tomorrow. No nation desiring progress could afford to have its people chained to the past. Even water, stagnate, stinks, and flowing, it fascinates. It is very easy right now to get distracted, to get chained down, and to get bogged down by the ideas of morality and decency and society and sanskar. You could, for yourself. For everybody else, none of your business. Let the women go out. Let the women work. Let the women have babies. Let the women breastfeed. Let them choose to do what they want to do with their own bodies. It is not up to you in any way to say otherwise. Thanks for watching.